This podcast is hosted in collaboration with the Comsmith, the Peterborough Podcast. We're sharing stories about why Peterborough is a great place to work, live, and play. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Yes.
And why you left Ancorda Recruitment and set up yourself?
Okay, diving straight in. So, hello, I am Nell Walcott. I am Managing Director of Nell Walcott Recruitment, and until last March, I was Managing Director of Ancorda Recruitment. Why did I leave ACR and set up on my own? I stepped into the MD role when Anne sold the business in March 21.
Very well known.
Really well known, Ancorda Recruitment. We were very proud to say, I think, that we were the premier recruitment brand to partner with when recruiting in Peterborough. Anne stepped away and sold the business in March 21, and the new owners, John and Ken, invited me to step into the role of managing director, which was brilliant. I loved it. I learned so much from them, but it became quite apparent that after some time, rightly so, their appetite was to grow the organisation and they want a national presence. And it became evident to me that meant I was doing less and less of what I love. And I love recruiting, and I say it without boast, but I do think I'm pretty bloody good at it. It became obvious also that I think because of my sort of fundamental belief system around, I don't think anybody should, the recruitment solution should focus on the candidate and the client and the match of those two people. And in order to grow, you have to bring in a more of a sales approach to that. And I was quite resistant to that as a strategy for the organisation. So it became very evident that I was becoming, rather than an enabler as a managing director, I was a bit of a break. So took the decision and handed in my notice in March 24, and then spent a year working very closely with the owners to get the right solutions in terms of people, processes and systems, and left them with all the greatest wishes at the end of March 25, and happily they've got some great people in the business and they're growing and doing exactly what they wanted to do. So I'm absolutely over the moon for them. But it gave me then the chance to think about, well, what do I want to do? And the idea originally was to leave the business and set myself up as a fractional talent manager, so to work with small SMEs on a fractional basis to support them in designing and delivering their recruitment strategies, which happily I've done now in 3 contracts since I left. I had planned to have the summer off, but didn't quite happen that way. I got a call in the February as I was leaving ACR saying, can you come and recruit us? We've got 5 roles we need to recruit: a CCO, CFO. And so my break over the summer consisted of 4 days, and I started at Caris on the 4th of April. And then another old client leaned in and asked me to join them on their payroll. Obviously, I was had some restrictive covenants, so I joined working from inside the organisation, which was a really interesting learning curve. I had to learn very, very quickly that actually you're not the leader anymore. You're not director. You can't be directive. You need to be the person who listens. So 2 of those, one of these. And the idea is that I partner with SMEs to support them in making critical hire decisions, because it's very, very hard. It's a difficult market out there. The skills available don't necessarily match the role profiles, and I think I can make a massive difference supporting organisations in understanding what their needs are, actually articulating those needs in current parlay, putting it into a job description, and then designing a campaign that means that they recruit somebody that stays with the business for some time.
I was going to say, so I presume from that then, what you've just said, a lot of the time that the companies don't actually know what their needs are, sorry, am I allowed to say that? Because that must be part of it, because sometimes, it could be they might want to streamline something, bring someone in, or they might want to go in a new direction, or they might not know what they've got already, or...
Exactly that. I think organisations at any size miss a trick and not... when you move to a recruitment stage, you pull out the job description from the candidate that you recruited last time. And if it was 3 or 4 years ago, the evolution of that role over that period will be huge. So it's taking the time to actually sit down with the person who's exiting that role, whether it be for promotion or because they're leaving for a new role, and to actually document what it is that they do, and then sense check that against the business strategy and the business process and systems and people to make sure that role still fits. So people do know what they're doing. They're time poor. It takes a long time to recruit. to actually put the thought into what the campaign should look like. Where are our candidates? Where do they sit? And how do we access them? And how do we make ourselves look attractive as a potential employer? So all of those things are areas that I can advise on. Expertly, I would like to think.
Of course, that's why. But you laugh about that, but if you get the wrong hire, that can really scar you financially, emotionally, everything. I mean, you must have examples.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Without naming anyone.
No, of course I wouldn't name anybody, but no, the risks are great, and I think as recruiters we have a massive responsibility to ensure that the fit is right, that the personality of the individual suits the personality of the organisation, and getting it wrong is painful. Getting it wrong is painful for the organisation because it's time lost, it's potentially revenue lost. It can unsettle productive teams, but also for the individual, you've got to think along the lines of, if you put them in the wrong role, it impacts every single facet of their life. And therefore, recruiters, we have to be more responsible. We need to be more careful. We need to be more considered, and we need to be ready to challenge people on their due diligence, both the organisation and the individual, to make sure that we've thought everything through and actually we've done the very, very best we can to make sure that the fit is right. You get it wrong sometimes, but if you really do carefully curate the campaign and work really closely with the candidates to make sure that we're doing the right thing by them as well, then it 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, it works.
Has that process that you've just described there, has that changed a lot over the years? I mean, we have mentioned
massively.
I just the reason I ask it is because in some ways, I guess, some parts of it won't have changed, I'm sure, but some parts of it will have changed massively.
Yeah.
You're still looking for the right person for the right role,
Yeah.
and that would still be the same 25, 30
Absolutely
years ago.
Yeah.
However, now we have LinkedIn and we have social media and Zoom and all these things, ways of communicating. Tell us about that.
So, I mean, I joined Calder Recruitment in 1997, so I was with them for nearly 28 years. And I came to them from an internal recruiter role for a management consultancy in London. And our week was timetabled around midday on a Wednesday, because that's the time that we had to get the copy to the press. And so, we would be thinking about word count. We would display our adverts. Everything was focused on that Wednesday deadline. And then we'd have to hold our breath and wait for the CVs to arrive. And of course, they would arrive by post. We had an email address, which was annecorder@hotmail.co.uk. If we were lucky, we remembered to check it maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And now I probably get in excess of 200 emails. Up to 200 emails a day. I think when I was managing director at ACR, probably 300 plus. There's so much choice now in terms of how we try to attract candidates and bring candidates into our organisations. As you rightly pointed out, you've got LinkedIn, you've got Indeed, you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook, you've got it's just that there is too much choice, and every organisation will have their tried and tested and likely to sit with that. But equally, the pace at which applications can be made, it's a click of a button. It's one click of a button. So as candidates, you potentially think you're doing a good job because I've applied for 20 jobs today. Whereas actually, have you really thought about the quality of that role and the fit to you? So, we're getting back into reaching into the hundreds of applications for just one role. So it makes it harder to find the gems in there, to really dig out the ones that really fit. It also takes up time because if somebody has expressed interest in your organisation, you do have a responsibility to go back and give them a decision. I think the term ghosting in recruitment is very, very real. Lots of individuals make applications, they hear nothing.
No response.
No, and I'm proud to say that, notwithstanding the odd oversight, I do respond to everybody that applies to a role that I'm advertising. It's really important.
So insulting
to
that way.
It is. And so many have first interviews and then they don't hear anything. And, I did it inadvertently to somebody in February, and I felt so dreadful because she was waiting, been out for work for some time, and she was waiting for a response in a role that she was really grateful. And I didn't get back to her in time. She found a role. So more for me.
Okay. But there is the flip side of that as well. I mean, you just talked there about the click of a button.
Yeah.
Somebody can, submit 20 applications, but they won't be curated specifically for the role that they're going for. And they may have used, and we're going to AI, even in the first place, to generate a perfect application.
I wonder what AI does when somebody's generated a perfect application and then it's AI screening it against the outcome.
Two AI robots
two AIs,
fighting each other.
It's a challenge.
But that is, I'm sure you see that now. I mean, that must be a massive thing now in recruiting.
Yeah.
And how do we
mitigate it? I don't know. I mean, it's still evolving, and I don't have the answers. It is a tool, and it should be used, but it needs careful human curation of the output of that CV. It's very obvious when somebody's bunged something into a chat and there's an outcome and they just press the button and send that and they haven't thought about it because the language doesn't feel authentic, or the layout is odd, or there are terms in there that relate to the job description that you've advertised in the advert that you put out there, but that doesn't necessarily pertain to the person's previous work history and skills. So I think it has to be. It's a useful tool, carefully adopted,
because it could be used responsibly or well. In time,
yeah,
it might be able to polish things up or make something seem a bit more. So you wouldn't rule it out. There's no point in ruling it out.
No, God, AI's here. We've just got to learn. We've got to learn to live with it, and we need to learn how to coordinate with it and collaborate with it as we would any individual who is a new technology that's coming into the sector that you operate in.
So you mentioned there somebody who was going for their first job, and what are the sort of challenges that, let's say, younger people are facing at the moment?
Gosh, so many. I mean, Peterborough is one of the highest communities for the NEET statistics, so that means not in employment, education or training, between the ages of 16 and 24, and we have a problem, and we need to address it. Thankfully, there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with the Chamber of Commerce partnering with the LSIP and with the CPCA. There is now funding available at the moment for providing the opportunity for work experience. There's funding available for apprentices, so I'd encourage anybody who's thinking about how can I bring a young person into the workplace to look at that. But it's hard, and I think it's because I don't think the careers advice in schools has kept up with the outside world. I think as industry leaders, we have a responsibility to lean in more to education and share what choices there are out there. I mean, when I was at school, which was probably 100 years ago, but I was supposed to either be a librarian or a nurse, and I would be useless at either. But nobody ever told me that there was a career out there called recruitment, and I stumbled into it through my placement year at university. I worked with Procter & Gamble and put their graduate recruitment campaign together for them. It was just this moment where I thought, oh my God, I think this is what I want to do with my life, and so I did. So I think the challenges are there's a lack of confidence in our young people. Coming out of COVID, these are the kids that would have had Saturday jobs. And they're all, in food service, or there weren't even paper rounds that could be done at retail. Absolutely, and I think they are the people who have been hit hardest. They're not work ready. They don't know how to apply for jobs.
Is that sorry, when you say not work ready, is that about the nuts and bolts not being able to apply and read, or do it properly in that way, but also psychologically as well?
Both.
Yeah,
both, unfortunately, yes. And I think we've got 5 generations in the workplace at the moment, and all of the motivations have been discussed in many podcasts, I'm sure. Having meaning and purpose is really, really important to our younger generations and our emerging leaders and managers, in their first and second jobs. But the reality is that in order to get into the space where you can do that, make that difference and join that purpose, you've got to prove yourself first. It doesn't come without sitting behind the desk and doing the data entry, or sitting in a retail store and filling the shelves. And so I think there's a dose of realism that needs to be understood, that actually, in order to find that fulfillment, you've got to do the search first, and the search comes with
grind.
You've got to get your hands dirty while you find out what your purpose is and where you belong. So I feel for young people massively.
And is there also a responsibility, because I've spoken to college, AIU, etc., about the role of employers getting into those places as well and doing their bit to you
Yeah.
mentioned it a little bit as well.
Yeah.
There is that as well, isn't there?
Absolutely. One of my roles that I'm working in at the moment, I'm working with the Delicious Ideas Food Group in Peterborough, and we just put together what I think was an epic work experience for a young lad last week. And he came in, he did a very little bit of HR with me. He was thrown into the warehouse. He went into production and filled bins full of sweets and nuts and things like that. But he also went out to events. He went to go around to supplier, and he finished the week and he was on such a high.
So such a breadth of experience.
Massive. And it's, it was great to be able to curate that with our CCO, Rufus Harper, and so wonderful to see the impact it had on the person involved. So you do get something back from it. And actually thinking about putting together the programme, we've now got a programme of work experience that will last a week. So we're planning on bringing another work experience person in before the end of the summer.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
It's really good. So from that, are there any specific skills gaps in Peterborough at the moment you can think of?
Well, there's lots of skills gaps globally, I would say. It's not a specific skills gap. I think the gap is being created because roles are changing, and roles are changing due to automation, AI, systemization. And what previously might have taken a team of 10 people to do, which data entry or customer service or whatever it is, there are bots, there are systems that can actually do that quicker. Instantly, absolutely. So what the skills gap is being created by that evolution, the digitization and automation, and so what comes from that is that you have pockets of particular skills that aren't employed in where they would have been before. So they need to think about, what can I do instead? The skills required to curate the outputs from that are different from actually delivering it. And I think that's where the skills gap is emerging in Peterborough. We are a logistics heavy food production. We've got a lot of sort of boots on the ground, hands in the dirt type roles. That won't change immediately, but I think it's those office-based roles that we're seeing the biggest hit at sort of entry level, maybe.
Yeah, because we'll still need engineers.
Somebody's got, somebody's got to pick the rotten potato off the line, So, and obviously there is systemization that does that, but I don't think you can replace the hands. We've got organisations that are putting together bouquets of flowers. That would be a lot of it. That's a lot of robot who can replace a person so quickly.
No.
So those will stay the same. Obviously, digital marketing's been a skill shortage in our area for a long time. That as that evolves, and now we're talking about TikTok and stuff I know nothing about. Snapchat and the skills required to deliver those roles. We are seeing that emerge now within our younger generations, which is great.
So for younger people, or indeed anybody, what tips would you give them on preparing for an interview, for example?
Okay, fine. Yeah, interview prep, very, very important. So first, make sure that before you even get to the stage that you've got get to interview, that you know what CV you've sent that role. I would encourage anybody to make sure that every time that they apply for a role, they customise their CV in line with that role.
You see people do it the wrong way around.
People do it the wrong way around. They actually, I'll ring them and say, "Oh, you've applied for a role." And they say, "Oh, did I?" It's not great. It's not.
They didn't even know they'd applied.
Well, they don't know which role they've applied for. No, I don't. I've definitely not applied for that. And I've got your number in front of me, so I think you did. So I think it's about tracking it, and I think that's where the danger of all of the new channels comes in, is that you press a button, but you don't know where you sent your CV or who you sent your CV to. So track that, and link the CV that you send across into a spreadsheet with that specific CV linked to it, so you can see how you promoted yourself to that organisation, and then sit down and segment the job description or the job advert, and look for the top 6 things within that role that you would expect to be asked questions of. Use AI, stick the job description into AI and ask AI to tell you what questions you're likely to be asked at interview, and then start thinking about how you can evidence that from your own experience. Don't ask AI to answer the questions for you. because there will be a big gap between what you can deliver and what AI thinks you can deliver, and maybe you could be way better than AI would suggest, but equally there might be a little bit of a gap there. So think about how you can apply that, and be ready with that evidence, and don't be afraid to ask questions. It's okay in an interview to say, "Gosh, I can't think of an answer to that right now. Can we come back to it?"
Yes.
So many times you have people who are searching for an answer, who are talking around the houses, and you lose people through that process.
Yeah.
If you're interviewing online, remember that there's a small camera that's staring at you. You can cover the whole of your screen with post-it notes and hits and tips of what you want to add to it. And then when you go into,
And they don't know.
they don't know what you're looking at.
A lot of people are doing it anyway.
But
So.
equally, don't have a history, like a list of rehearsed AI responses, because that's also very obvious. And you can tell when somebody's actively using AI in an interview. So that's a no-no. Make sure you know where you're going, turn up on time, know who you're asking for, and show off your personality a little bit. You've got to work with these people 5 days a week potentially, and we spend far too long at work with people that we don't match. So I think that's really important.
Just quickly, what sort of percentage of interviews are now conducted online as opposed to?
It's rare to a point, unless it's a remote role from a fully online process. But in order to have that kind of first initial introductory chat and make sure that the styles align, cultures align, personalities align, skills align, it's becoming increasingly more popular. I can't put a percentage on it because I'd just be plucking a number out of the air, but I would say way more than half.
Okay. So you have your own business, obviously,
I do.
which is going, but you're also a board member with the Chamber of Commerce as well.
Yes.
Tell us about that. Your various.
What an honour,
roles.
honestly. When I got the phone call from Brian Jones, who was the chair at the time, and he said, I thought he was ringing about something completely different. He said, "Oh, Nell, we've just been talking in the nominations committee, and we'd like you to join the board." I mean, my imposter was rolling around on the floor laughing, because it was just, well, that's ridiculous. And so that sort of, I can't possibly do that. And then I thought, no, of course I can. It came at a tricky time. I was in the process of exiting ACR, but nobody knew.
Right.
So, there's the internal narrative that says, oh, they want managing director of Rank Order recruitment. They don't want Nell Walcott. And so when I was able to, I spoke to them about it before I signed on the dotted line. It is a joy to work in that organisation. The individuals around the table, we're so different, but yet we're so connected and so purposeful in terms of, where business belongs. We want to connect organisations so that they can do great business together. And I think, the Chamber does a huge amount of good in that area. 110 events, I think, this year planned. Huge focus on Peterborough because it's our 100 years. And the service and access that you can get through the Chamber in terms of the support packages for what could be, very little if you just went for the Protect level of membership is, it's an excellent deal. But we're doing good stuff. We're working with, I'm lucky enough that I'm kind of the people voice, so I get to go to and engage with young people in schools. We did a brilliant panel at over in in Wisbech, at the college over there. It's called Wisbech St Mary's, I think. And we had a panel of apprentices, and I hosted a panel there for them, and it was just great to see these kids. They'd really found themselves, and they were so on. I mean, they're kids; they're young adults. But they were so searingly honest, And we heard stories of people who'd been told at school they were ne'er-do-wells and they wouldn't get anywhere, and yet somebody had seen something in them, and now they are living their best life in employed, purposeful. They have a place. And one of the quotes that will live with me forever was a young girl who was working in a sort of all-male sort of engineering environment, and she said she was really, really shy when she was younger, and she came into this environment and she's just flown. And she said, what I've realised is, if you give me an inch, I'll take a mile. And I thought, that is so insightful, and the appetite that was in the room. So that's the sort of stuff that I get to get involved with at the Chamber, and I think that makes me one of the luckiest people in the world, really.
Yeah, no, it sounds it. And also you've got connections with NSPCC as well. Tell us about that.
So I'm chair of the Peterborough NSPCC support group. So we are a growing collective of business people who work to put on events, raising the profile of the NSPCC and to fundraise. So this year we've made the decision that we are ring fencing all of our money that we raise, and it's our 30th year, so it's another anniversary for me. All of the money that we raise will be going into interventions in schools and education settings. So NSPCC stands for National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children, and these essential interventions that the NSPCC put on that we fund reach children in schools, reach carers in schools and educators in schools and parents, so they know what to do if they're worried. And if that means that we have a child who stands up and says, actually, this doesn't feel right, and goes and asks for help, or a parent can identify a child that's at risk, then that's brilliant. I mean, I don't want to stop at one. You know, at the moment, the statistics for children that are at risk of abuse is 1 in 6, which is horrific. And that is because they are so accessible. You know, it's no longer, you don't have to hang around, you know, taking it to the darkest part. But, you know, we're preventing abuse, neglect. It's physical, it's mental abuse, it's obviously sexual abuse as well. So we want to fund more of those. We funded 7,042 interventions last year. This year we want to fund more, and then next year even more. And we're working really closely with the NSPCC to forge links between the education setting in Peterborough and the NSPCC. So it's not just the fundraising that we're doing, we are a strategic ally. And I would encourage anybody, I'm going to look directly to camera now.
You can do.
Thank you. If you're interested in finding more about the NSPCC, then come along to our meeting on the 13th of April at the Holiday Inn. If you'd like to take a table at our anniversary event on the 16th of October, or you'd like to join us for our general knowledge quiz, which will take place in July, date TBC, please come along. You won't regret it, and you will make a massive difference.
Super. I will put the link to
Thank
your
you.
site or your email.
We haven't got a landing page yet. It's on its way.
Right.
Next couple of weeks, I can get that to you.
But people will be able, when they see this video, they'll see some way of getting in touch with you.
Yeah, just my email's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Peterborough itself, is it a great place to work, great
Yes.
place to live, great place to tell us about that?
Yes.
What your thoughts are?
I am fiercely Peterborough positive. It's been my chosen place of work for 30 years, and I have had the privilege of partnering with such brilliant organisations to help them build teams, effective teams. And lots of those organisations, representatives thereof, have become very close friends. We have such a rich tapestry of commerce in this city of ours, and we have some, you know, national, international, global organisations with their corporate headquarters here, and nobody shouts about that.
No.
But we're also, you know, we're sitting here right now in the Alia Future Business Centre, and we're also one of the cities that has the most prolific number of set-up organisations and entrepreneurial enterprise. So it's right that we're sitting here.
It's great.
It's great in here.
Yeah.
And you know, the organisations that I've worked with over the years are just so many, so diverse. You know, we've got ABF with 4 or 5 businesses headquartered here: British Sugar, Silver Spoon Sugar, AB Maori, AB Agri. We've got Coloplast, which is an organisation that makes a massive difference to people who are needing wound care or ostomy care. Huge difference. We've got Gen Phoenix, which is, there's some alchemy that goes on there, and I don't know how they do it, and I have walked around the factory, but they take offcuts from leather products and they make the most durable leather derived sustainable product that we can now buy on handbags and boots, but we used to sit on bus seats. It's just so brilliant. And then you've got smaller organisations. Obviously, shout out to Delicious Ideas, because that's where I'm working at the moment, and the heart of that organisation is just amazing. And there are many SMEs like that in our city. So I think we should be talking about what's great about Peterborough and the great opportunities that there are within our city limits. And I think we're, you know, the national press and even the local press sometimes are too quick to bash us. So, you know, we're a great place to work. We've got the most beautiful cathedral. We've got some fantastic restaurants and eateries. We've got huge culture, very rich environment to work in. So yeah, I would shout about Peterborough all day long if I could.
Well, you can, and you have done. Pretty good finish. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Cheers.